Pastor Steve Cioccolanti here. I want to welcome Professor Augusto Zimmermann, who is a native of Brazil, but living and teaching and protesting in Perth. How did your big protests go recently? I was very proud to see about 12,000 people came to your protest.
Well, the police is estimating 17,000. Wow. I believe that it was at least 17,000. And the funny and ridiculous thing I have to say is that the ABC reported as if we were only 2,000 people. Certainly, we have at least almost 10 times more than the numbers that the media have reported.
Well, I was going to ask you, did the media even bother to report? So they just report a lie. When they cover it, they spin it.
It's quite clear that the event was too successful to be properly reported, because they only report when the events are not entirely successful. But at this time, it seems that there is something very substantial taking place, a total mobilization of the population. And you had an impressive gathering on Saturday of like-minded, concerned citizens who are concerned not about the erosion of rights and freedoms in Western Australia, but we are sympathetic and we are expressing our solidarity to all those in the other states who are going through terrible lockdowns and other draconian and arbitrary measures by the governments.
Yeah, I think that's what people need to realize. It's not a matter of being anti-vax. It's a matter that we stand on principle that if you take away our choice, that matters in a democracy. And they have even taken away the voice of elected parliamentary members who dissented on the vaccine mandate. Here in Victoria, we've gone so far now as to, in abuse of power, that the parliament voted out the people who dissented, so that in the next, whatever they're going to vote on in the next vote, which is probably going to be the extension of state of emergency powers, the dissenters are not there because they dissented against the vaccine, and somehow that allows them to ride roughshod over the entire Constitution and say, well, those elected representatives cannot even return.
Yeah, it is despicable, but you have to understand that this whole thing started when the opposition didn't manifest its objection to the initial measures that had been adopted. Here in Western Australia, for instance, the opposition leader was behaving more like a cheerleader for the government, basically agreeing with all the draconian and arbitrary measures that Labor was imposing upon the people of Western Australia. So we had a total lack of opposition for a long period of time. And I think that's one of the reasons as to why things are getting so terribly wrong, because from the very beginning, we should be more suspicious that what was intended or alleged to be temporary would eventually become more permanent measures. So we don't have an expectation to see the end of these draconian rules, because one power is taken away. It's very hard for the powers to be returned to the citizen.
Yeah, it's the slippery slope argument. So you're a law professor, and it's very rare to have a law professor who's so active in civil rights in Australia, and this is really a matter of civil rights. You're like the Martin Luther King for Australia, going out there, teaching law, speaking about Christ, being very reasonable and peaceful about it, and yet I'm sure they smear you. You're standing on the right that I understand is guaranteed in the First Amendment of the U.S. Bill of Rights. Please explain to us what kind of protection do we have to protest? Because I saw you up on stage in front of, let's say, 17,000, and you spoke very freely before a big crowd that cheered. Here in Victoria, we're the same country, but a different state. When protesters went out, they were hunted down. They were like sheep being chased by wolves. They were shot at. Imagine this, in Australia, where we've been disarmed. They were shot at by rubber bullets that are like I mean, the rubber bullets are like the size of like that. They're not like tiny little, pebbles. That would gouge out your eye, or it could blind. It could cause a miscarriage if a woman was out pregnant. So I don't understand legally, where do we stand? Do we have a right to assemble and protest in a
Well,
democracy?
this is a very important point, and certainly one of the elements for the realization of a democratic system of government is the idea that the citizens have the right to manifest their opinions and be able to express politically their concerns about the course of action that governments are taking. This is something that the High Court itself has acknowledged in the past as an essential component of the system of parliamentary democracy. If parliamentarians have the right to express their opinions in parliament as a result of the need of representing us, those who are being represented should have the right to express their opinions with freedom. And the High Court has already acknowledged this implied right of the citizen. It is the implied freedom of political communication that the High Court has found to exist as a result of our democratic parliamentary system. It's impossible to have a truly functional democracy if citizens are prevented from having the freedom of expressing their opinions. So what Victoria can have is no more than just a system of dictatorship, even being an elected one, because tyrants can pretend to have a system where they can return to power. But to have a true democracy, the fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual must be respected. And we are not seeing this to happen in Victoria. So objectively speaking, Victoria is no longer a democracy. It is actually just a dictatorship. It can be a dictatorship where the tyrants are endorsed by the people, because you see that Hitler once was very popular. And I hope and pray that, like other tyrants, this one in Victoria, one day you have to be given an account of all the violations and gross violations of fundamental rights and freedoms that he is currently perpetrating upon the citizens of your state.
I think this is so good that we're going to allow some of our YouTube listeners to have a preview of what you've just said. And for more, they really need to come and join ETU, our End Time University. We're talking about some, very controversial, sensitive topics. In a certain sense, if you're living in America, it's not controversial because you have something called the First Amendment. I'm going to read it to our students here. And again, just join ETU and you're going to get all sorts of legal background and constitutional background on how to protect our freedom and defeat tyranny. The First Amendment of the Bill of Rights says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Now, I'm sure you could teach a whole university level subject just on that sentence. It's an amazing sentence. I want to say that if people knew what we've just talked about in the past hour, they would know this is some rich material that you're not going to get anywhere else. This is so helpful. It's so good. Everybody should know it, but we can't put it on YouTube. It's not gonna fly, and it's truly worthy. This is university level, like degree earning stuff. People who are out there practicing in the field don't know what you've just taught us.